Sometimes I give myself the creeps.
Oh, shoot. Show's going to start. Let's go. Show's going to start. Come on, let's go.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Standing Out, the daily podcast about sales, marketing, and leadership. I'm Trey Griggs of Beta Consulting Group. We're so excited that you are here with us today. We've got a great show today. And in fact, we've had an incredible lineup all week of shows. Check this out. Yesterday, I had an awesome conversation with Eric Kruger. He's the CRO of Navix. Today, Jason Lippert. You're going to love this conversation today. Tomorrow, we got Eric Masadi, president of logistics at Trailer Bridge. Phenomenal conversation coming up. Brad Reinhardt on Thursday, talking about transportation clubs. And then on Friday, we've got Kara Smith-Brown. She's the CEO of Lead Coverage. So it's going to be a great week of shows. Can't wait to bring those to you this week. And if you do me a favor, take a moment and check us out over at betaconsultinggroup.com. We are helping companies deal with the problem of obscurity. You might have a great product or a great service and nobody knows about you. So we're going to help you stand out. We're going to help you with the messaging, content creation, and get the word out. Tell your story so people know what you do, why you do it, and why they should work with you. Fill out a form. We'd love to work with you there. Also, while you're there, check out some of the swag items that we got going there. We got all kinds of stuff at the swag store. It's so cool. We got our grand opening going on right now. So use that coupon code beta-GO to get 30% off your entire order. Pick up water bottles, coffee mugs, t-shirts, all kinds of great stuff. We want you to be a part of our community of people who are pursuing excellence every day as a part of our swag store. Use that coupon, pick up some swag. We appreciate that. It's going to be great. And also, I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, to TAFS. These are the good guys in freight factoring. They are helping companies with especially owner operators and small carriers, keeping those wheels turning with all the discounts that they need on fuels and tires and cash flow and all kinds of great stuff. So thanks so much to our sponsor, TAFS. Make sure you check them out by clicking on the link that Morgan's going to put into the show today. And that'll take you right to my landing page with TAFS so that you can get started with them immediately. Whether you're a carrier or a freight broker, you can work with TAFS. Freight brokers can be referral partners and make sure that your carriers keep those wheels turning. So we appreciate that. All right, everybody. Can't wait to bring to this show a good friend of mine who I've been following this guy for a long time, had a chance to interview him before and talk to him. He has an incredible story, an incredible journey, especially when it comes to leadership and specifically leadership development with his team. Can't wait to have this conversation today. So everybody, please welcome to the show my good friend, Jason Lippert. Jason, what's up, man? How you doing?
Hey, Trey, how are you? Thanks for having me.
Man, it is good to have you back. It's been a little while since we last spoke. Last time we had a chance to talk, I was actually in your neck of the woods over in Indiana and had a great conversation, had a good time chatting with you. For those who may not know who you are and what you do, tell us a little bit about yourself and about Lippert Components.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I've been with the business for 28 years. It's really been my only job. I started as a welder in the line for a couple of years before I started in leadership. Our company was bought out by a public company in the 90s, and we've grown it nicely from 100 million to about 5 billion. We've got 15,000 team members with, 100 divisions and, I think close to 13 different countries. And most of our business is right here in the States. So
yeah, no, it's been an absolutely amazing journey.
Stuff for RV, marine, housing, a lot of different components. So we're a component supplier to a lot of the bigger OEMs in these different markets.
Yeah, the growth has been tremendous. In fact, the last time that we spoke it was in 2021, you guys were a $3 billion company in revenue.
Yeah.
You just kind of gotten over that mark. And now you're at $5 billion. I mean, obviously with RVs being popular and those types of things, it really is taking off for you guys and what you're doing. But that kind of growth doesn't happen without great structure and without great leadership. I'd love for you to talk for just a little bit about your journey into leadership and just to kind of unpack that a little bit, because it wasn't a natural thing. It's something that you've really developed, especially over the last decade.
Yes, it's hard to unpack, 28 years of learning in, a few minutes, but I tell you, I think that most of us don't get the proper leadership training in school and education. You're just not prepared for what's needed in leadership. So, like a lot of other people, I learned it on my own, starting in the manufacturing, ground floor, welding with a group of largely, guys, and we were throwing steel around and it was a different environment, not a good mature environment for leadership, at least to start learning. So I just learned over the years, and eventually had an epiphany, and came through a lot of prayer, just because of I was struggling with, is there more to life than just growth and stock price and sales and all these financial metrics and goals. But the leadership epiphany came to me in terms of just a TED talk I listened to that was called Truly Human Leadership. And it just talks about treating people as human beings, and you have all this opportunity to impact, the tens or the hundreds or the thousands of people, you have the privilege to lead every day. So what are you doing with that opportunity? And, we quickly turned from, using people to get the job done, to really focusing on how do we, make this a really great place for people to live and grow and develop as human beings, but also, get the work done. And it turns out that when we focused on the one, the other just was almost automatic. So I would tell you that we couldn't have grown from, $1 billion or $2 billion to the $5 billion business we are today without having that solid, culture that we have, because it just creates an atmosphere of retention. You cannot run a big business if you have significant turnover. So, culture and leadership development focus really helps keep the retention high in the business.
There's so much there to unpack, but I want to go back to one thing you said in particular. And I think this is actually a common story that we hear, but a lot of times we don't believe it because most of us don't experience it, but you've experienced it. And that is when people are successful in life and they experience massive growth and they have all the things in life that they might want, but they still feel unfulfilled. They ask that question, is this all there is? Is there more to it? And that experience for you really led you to really changing the entire way that you lead, the entire way that you behave, and your focus on your business. What was it about that time, and what was the specific things you went through that said, I need to focus on developing my people? Like that's the most important thing here, because when you look at your LinkedIn profile, when you look at what you post and what you value and what you talk about, it's all about building up your people.
Yeah. So we started our journey in culture and really made a stark pivot, about 10 years ago. At that time, our turnover was about 125%. We were managing it. We were getting it done like a lot of other manufacturing businesses, but it was just painful.
And probably expensive.
Yeah, expensive. Well, and you don't think about that. You're kind of looking at your bottom line, and you're just figuring out how do you replace people as you need. And it never really occurred to us that as we continue to grow, that man, if we kept growing, that 125% was going to equate to at today's level, 17,000 people leaving the organization every year. Back when we were just a few thousand, it didn't seem like a whole lot. But we really, like I said, we really just focused on the experience of the team member, making sure that it was a two-part transaction. We were getting the work done, but in turn, we were making sure that there was real focus and emphasis on how do we make sure they're 40 or 50 hours a week in our business is a good experience, and it's a pleasant experience, and it's a respectful experience. One that makes them say, hey, look, at the end of the day or the end of the week, I worked in a lot of places. I worked in 6 or 7 or 10 different places in my life, and I've never worked in a place where the leadership has treated this fairly and respectfully and thoughtfully, and this place is just, it's where I want to be. It's where I want to retire. That's ultimately the experience that we're trying to create, and that just bolsters the business over the long term, or gives you the opportunity to bolster the business over the long term.
Yeah, and I've got a good friend who works at Lippert, Tony Darnell. He's worked in several places.
Oh, yeah.
He speaks about that. He talks about how great the culture is there. So when it comes from you, it's not just lip service that you're saying. I'm actually hearing it from people on the ground level who are working with the teams and seeing it firsthand. And one of those components that, because I've had a chance to tour the facility, I'm an RV guy, as you know, so I love the facility. Got to see how awnings are made and all that cool stuff. Yeah. But one thing I noticed when I walked through your facility is that the culture has become a part of the DNA of the company. It's not just on a website. It's not just a plaque. It really is something you live out. Talk about some of the things that you did, some of the things that were important to permeate that throughout the culture, whether it be the signs on the wall, the town halls that you have. Talk a little bit about the actual nuts and bolts of what you do.
Yeah, I think that's why it's really hard for companies today to make culture work well, is because most people, they put the signs on the wall, they put the banners up, they might talk about it, the values here and there. But for it to really work and for it to really be real and for the team members to really feel that the culture is, real and meaningful, the leaders have to live it out every day. They have to keep it in the airspace every day. We have to talk about it at meetings. We have to talk about the values. For us, when it comes down to those actions that you're asking for, it's listening on a regular basis. And then, once we listen, it's what are you going to do with that feedback? If we do things about it, make things happen based on the feedback we get, they're likely going to keep giving us more feedback and say, hey, leadership's really listening to us. They must really care. A lot of these people have worked in other companies where, they either give feedback and nobody does anything. They give feedback and people say, okay, we'll do it. And then they do nothing. Or they just don't give feedback at all because they know it's not going to go anywhere. And that's just a morbid experience to be a part of if that's your career. But listening is a big piece. So we do what we call listening sessions regularly. So I do them, my team does them all over the place. And we just make sure that we're listening. We're making listening a regular part of the communication, because communication isn't just about, talking and giving direction and giving orders. It's a big part of it. It's just carving out time and space to listen and being thoughtful. But recognizing and appreciation, do a ton of that. Our teams are encouraged to just make, and the days go by fast and we get, fast paced and moving real fast. But, at the end of the day, we got to make time to recognize and appreciate, thousands of people for the good jobs that they're doing every single day. And that's, I think a lot of companies just breeze over that. And we do a lot of other things. We've got culture and leadership department. So that's a really big piece of how we make it real, how we make culture felt, and how our team members say, look, I work in a lot of places and people talk about culture, but at Lippert, it's real. Why? Because, we've dedicated real resources there, like we do sales and HR and IT and, every other meaningful function in the business. So.
Yeah, we're going to get to that in just a minute. The fact that you have a leadership and development department. I want to talk about that in just a minute. But let's go back to these listening sessions that you do. I mean, you're the CEO or president. I'm not sure exactly which title you go by, kind of both. But you're in charge of a $5 billion company, and yet you make time to go do these things. I know that you go to the plants on a regular basis. Your team does as well. I imagine you've had to say no to a lot of things to make time and space to say yes to this. Talk about the importance of managing your schedule and making sure that these things that are important to you are the big rocks that you get into your schedule. Yeah,
Trey, that's a really good point. So one of the first things I did when we made this culture pivot is, what do I have to stop doing, on a daily or weekly or monthly basis? What things that are just not adding value anymore? We get doing our routines and we keep stacking stuff up on our plates. And eventually, if you just take an inventory and assessment, you realize that you're doing a lot of things that aren't adding the kind of value they might have when you first did those activities, 2 or 5 or 10 years ago. So I took that inventory and stopped doing some things and really started making time to do at least one 90-minute listening session with one facility every week. I mean, I average about 1.5 to 2. Some weeks I get 3 in, some weeks I get 1 in, but I always get at least 1. And then again, that's a good rhythm for all of our team members and leaders to get into, because, when I do it, they say, hey, look, it's something we're doing as a company now. And we have, leaders all across the company, doing listening sessions, and we just get so much great feedback. I just came back from one a few minutes ago. So, but leaders need to make time to do that. That's like one of the most important things you can do. So, there's got to be less important things you're doing in your schedule as a CEO or a president or an owner of a business or what leader of any function. Make time for your people. It's not easy to do, but I think it's imperative. And as businesses grow, you add things on your list of things to do, like I said earlier, and it just gets easy to miss, some of these simple little things like listening and recognition.
Yeah, because I'm thinking if you're doing 2 to 3 of these with travel time included, I mean, you're investing 5, 6, 7, maybe 8 hours a month or a week into these listening sessions. I mean, that is really valuable time as a CEO, and it shows the importance of it. Like, if that's important to you and obviously you're doing it, then there's got to be a ton of value in that. So I love that you're doing that, and you're not asking your people to do something you're not willing to do yourself. I think that is really critical as a leader to be on the forefront of that. Talk a little bit about so this is interesting. Obviously, you're a large company. You have a lot of employees. Not everybody can do what you've done, but you went down the path also of actually creating a department to develop leaders, a leadership an intentional leadership training department, you have people on staff, their entire job is to develop leaders, because it's hard for people in the positions, managers, mid-level, whatever. It's hard for them to be responsible also for developing leadership in other people, because they have a job to do as well. Talk about why you decided to go that route of actually having people who their dedicated job is developing leaders around your company.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, like any other business, I mean, we said, hey, culture lives in HR. Most HR departments today will tell you that culture it's their responsibility to really safeguard that and keep it going. And, I think we just looked at all the stuff that everybody was doing, and it just became a silly question we kept asking ourselves is, why do we keep loading the most important thing in the business on a function or a group of people that already have full plates? How do you make the most important thing when you're kind of lumping it on a plate that's already full? So, like a lot of innovation, it's just one of those things where we said, you know what? If culture is the most important thing, it's got to be separate. There's got to be a group of people or, a team that really, makes this their primary focus and leads this charge for the business. HR certainly needs to be a partner there, but let's get a group to lead it. There just wasn't many examples we could find out there of companies that said, hey, we've got a culture and leadership development department. You're seeing some of that these days, but I guarantee it's less than 2% of the businesses out there. So, we started with one. We started with one leadership and development director and said, hey, look, let's just do kind of a beta test. And, you're going to have this plan of 800 people, and we're going to start with the frontline leaders in that business. So, in a plan of 1,000 team members, we've got, 100 people leading 1,000. That's kind of how the numbers boil out, or 100 leading 900. Because most of our team members in a plan are manufacturing products, and every 5 or 10 people report to one leader. So we said, let's make sure that these 100 are getting leadership coaching, so they understand our leadership values, our core values. They understand our mission. They understand what makes a leader a leader. We found through this whole process that most of the people we promoted over the years were just they were never missed work. They knew the most about products. They were decent people to be around. I can name a lot of things why we promoted people. None of those qualified those people to be leaders. So we said, hey, look, let's promote leaders on values. And we started doing that. One director turned into 2, turned into 5, turned into 10, turned into 20. So, we've got 20 coaches around the business today to help coach up our men and women around the front lines of our business, which is where most of our leadership sits in our company. And by the way, where most of the untrained leaders in a manufacturing business are, because a lot of these men and women, certainly didn't go to college. A lot of them didn't graduate high school. I went to college. I didn't get any leadership courses. So,
right.
We're just bringing this training to the front line so that they understand every day that, hey, look, leadership matters. Your personal growth matters. Your professional growth matters. Culture matters. And as we've kept this in the airspace and on the forefront of our business, people, know that you can't step up as a leader anywhere in our company if you're not making this stuff, a priority.
Yeah, Jason, it's absolutely tremendous that you have that in place. And you said something that I think is worth noting again, and that is companies often don't staff or don't build around what's most important. I've actually had this experience at churches where church will say, for example, like worship is really important, small groups really important, but they don't even have a small groups pastor leading small groups, right? Like you have to staff for what you value, for what's important. Exactly. And for you to say, you know what, man, leadership is going to be one of the most important things that we have. And to say, we're going to create a department that's all they do. That's a major investment without a direct return on investment, but it's worth it. Talk about why it's worth it to you. What are some of the side effects that you get from this?
Yeah, for me, it's all about impact. I mean, again, and I'd encourage any company that's thinking about this and the light bulb might be flickering or going on right now. It's, just start with one person. You can afford to hire a person, especially if you're, 500 team members or larger, one person. You watch what difference it makes. But what you're going to watch is the impact in people's lives. So, we've taken all these steps over the last 10 years because every year, we figure some things out. We get really good at doing them. And then we're like, okay, now that we're doing this well, let's do this. We get doing those things. We're like, okay, now that we're doing this well, let's do this. 10 years later, we've got leadership action plan cards for every single team member in the business. So, we've evolved to a point in our business where, our number one goal at this stage in the game for us is for all 15,000 people to have a personal and professional growth plan, where there's written down goals and there's action behind those goals. It's on a little card like this. We're probably 3,000 people the way through. Our goal is to actually get all that done in 2023. 2022 is just, let's get every leader in this company with a leadership action plan. But it's made such an impact in people's lives around the business, because most people, I think that the stat is like less than 1% of people in the country have written down goals for themselves. Which, so as we start doing this and coaching people through this, and we say, hey, look, it's just a part of being a team member at Lippert. We're going to do this. It's going to be uncomfortable and, maybe a little painful at first, but you're going to thank us later. Trust us.
Yeah, and
so many people have gone through that process, and just the impact. I've got a box of letters under my desk where, people have written saying, it's just amazing how you guys have pushed us to, think about our dreams and our goals, and just, start creating action and people to hold the team members accountable so that they can start accomplishing some of these goals. And when you accomplish goals, you feel good. They're taking the stuff home to their family, the community, and it's just having, immense impact. It doesn't matter whether the person's, quitting alcohol or drugs, or whether they're, their goal is to be a better mom or a dad. All those things are fantastic. And, we're doing that by the hundreds right now. And, there's no real ROI on that. But one thing I can tell you is that the average attrition for the people that have gone through the leadership action planning process is like 4 times less than our average attrition, because they're associating, hey, my company wants to help me. My company's helping me realize things that I've never really thought about before. I stopped dreaming and thinking about my goals when I graduated from high school. And I've been, trying to keep my nose above water ever since. And they're carving out time and helping me, think about how do I grow and develop as a person and a professional.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I kept thinking about the impact that goes way beyond Lippert. It goes to their families when they get home, to what kind of husband they are, what kind of dad they are. It goes to their communities, when they're out and about and they're interacting with people, they might be happier. They might have more empathy for other people around. The churches change, different organizations change because of the work that you're doing. And something else you just said that's just really made me smile. You said, you want to help people. You didn't word it this way, but essentially worded it, help them build their dreams, help them dream again and build their life. And I think a lot of times companies, especially large corporations, they tend to view workers as means to an end to build the leader's dream or the board's dream. That's or whoever, and to flip the script and say your job and your team's job is to help each member build their dream, whatever it might be, help reach their goals, whatever it might be. That is so powerful. That is such a big why. That's huge.
It is. And it's, like I said, it's impacted everybody that's been involved in the process, because people do, they get better at work. They take that home, they develop a positive attitude about, personal and professional growth at work. They take that home and they get excited about it, and it rubs off positively on their spouse and their kids. I've got, people in this box of letters, people have written me and said, I've taken this action plan home and I've got my kids doing it. The philanthropy that we do for the company, where we try to get 125,000 hours of community service through our team members volunteering every year. They're bringing their kids and their families to these events. So, it's building, better character, better people, and ultimately, healthier and happier families, I think. And, I think the world needs a lot of that right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. And you've now taken it mainstream a little bit. You have an event now called the Leadership Summit that you have. How many of those have you had so far?
Just one.
Just one. So this is the first one back in April. It was the very first one. Okay, talk a little bit about that, because that was at Notre Dame Stadium, and you had several really good speakers there. Amber Selking launched her first book. She's on your team. She was there as well. Talk a little bit about the metamorphosis from we're going to do this internally to now we're going to actually help other people do this as well.
Yeah. So it probably started, 2018. We said, hey, look, there's so many people calling in saying, hey, look, we're seeing your stuff on social media. We've got family members or friends that know people that work at your place, and they're just saying some crazy stuff about what's going on. And we want to know how you're doing it. We want to know, what all that means. How do you get started? Basically just saying, hey, look, how do we start and have a better culture in our business? So we started a leadership academy in 2018 that would just, go out and mentor and help businesses that were struggling with that question and trying to figure out, how do we do leadership development? How do we do culture better? How do we kick it off? We're kind of stuck. So we did that. And then, our leadership team, as it's evolved over the years, one of their goals became, is look, we want to have our own leadership conference that talks about leadership development and culture and how you do that in business. So that was one of their goals in 2021 for 2022, and they made good on it. They found a good partner and Purpose Point, and we put that event on together, like you said, and had a lot of good speakers, and a lot of greatness came out of it. Just a lot of collaboration and people sharing ideas, and I think a lot of light bulbs going off. And I know people went back to their businesses and took a lot of ideas. And again, that's another great reason to do it. There's a lot of impact we can have outside of our four walls, and that's the ripple I've come to think about over the last handful of years. I know our culture and leadership development, while it's not perfect, we're moving in the right direction. We're impacting a lot of people, and they're impacting their families when they go home. But what I think about is, how do we plant those seeds in other businesses so they can, get the same thing we have, and ultimately some of those teach other businesses what they've learned, and then the ripple just is, it's infinite, and it's highly impactful, and that's ultimately what's going to change the world. We say around here, why we do what we do around culture is because we think business can be a force for good in the world, because we got people for 40 or 50 hours a week, and if we do these, work on personal and professional growth and build people up, and don't treat them as tools, but treat them as human beings, and help preserve their dignity and help them realize they've got dreams and goals. And when they accomplish those dreams and goals, it's good for the community and the families and the business. Everybody wins.
Yeah, companies have more time with people than anyone else. You have an opportunity to impact in a greater way than anything else really does in our culture and our society, because people are spending 50 of their 168 hours, and a lot of those are sleep, but they're spending 50 of those 168 with the company. So I think that's huge. I hope there's going to be another one next year. I plan on being there. I couldn't go this year because I was on vacation. I was so bummed about that.
Yeah,
so I wanted to go. Yeah, I'm definitely going to be there, and I encourage people to check it out. Is there a website?
I think they just did a little short movie on it, and they're playing in theaters this summer. They took some of the best clips and blips, and so keep your eyes out for that.
That's great. Is there a website just for the event?
Yeah, I think it's the Purpose Summit.
thepurposesummit.com, something like that. So just search for the Purpose Summit on Google. If we don't have it up, we'll try to get that link in the show notes. That'll be great. I plan to be there. When are we going to see the book from Jason Lippert? When's that coming out?
I thought about it. There's so much to write about, but it'll come in time. It's there's definitely something there to write, because again, we want to get the word out. The most effective way for us has been through talking to amazing people like you that really help get the word out, and also, just sit and talk with businesses that are interested. I mean, those are the ones that tend to get, motion the fastest, as, they're curious, they want better for their business, they just don't know how to do it. So they reach out, and we are happy to give them time and energy to just help them maybe just get off the block and take a few steps and point them in the right direction. And a lot of those conversations, and we probably had over 100 of them since 2018, 100 different business consulting, opportunities where we've helped these businesses start or make some real progress. 90, probably over % of them, it's come down to, you gotta hire somebody for that development and culture position, and, make it real. There's no better way to tell your team members in the business culture, leadership development, you want more out of that than to put a resource there.
I completely,
that speaks volumes to your work family.
Completely. No, I completely agree with that. And I've learned so much from you, Jason. I remember the first time I heard about your intentional leadership journey. It really, made me sit back and go, wow, this is amazing. And business can be a force for good as long as it's a part of the plan. So thank you so much for being on the show. Really appreciate you coming on. I hope you'll come back and see us again soon, man. Sure. It was great to talk to you.
Keep doing good. I appreciate it, Trey.
Hey, appreciate it. Excellent. And everybody else who's on watching the show, make sure you come back tomorrow for another episode of Standing Out every day at 10:30. We love having you there, and have an absolutely fabulous week as you move forward. Again, thanks, Jason. We'll talk to you soon.